afternoon, everyone, and welcome. The November 20th, 2024 regular public board meeting of the Vallecitos Water District will come to order. Before we begin, I would like to announce that members of the public may watch the meeting live via computer or smart device by going to the district's website and clicking on the Watch Live icon. However, they will not be able to participate in the meeting remotely. Members of the public may also listen to the meeting live on their phone by dialing 888-788-0099. You'd think I'd have this memorized by this time, but I don't. Toll free or 877-853-5247, also toll free. When prompted, enter the meeting ID and passcode displayed on the district's website. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will lead us. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we'll have attendance. Directors, please indicate your attendance. Great. Thank you. We are all present. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Director Hernandez. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Pinnock. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, please vote. And the agenda is approved. Thank you. Do we have any public speakers?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Then I believe we are moving into presentations.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. So our first presentation tonight is our MESAC Award for our IT group. I have a quick announcement to make before I hand it over. So I'm pleased to announce that Vallecitos Information Technology Division has recently received the IT Achievement Award for 2024 from the Municipal Information System Association of California, or MESAC for short. This is a prestigious award, and it's presented to municipal IT divisions and special districts that have met or exceeded government standards in technology. Earning the MESAC Award involves a rigorous review of more than 100 audited criteria. These include strategic planning, budgeting, cybersecurity, operations and staffing, project management, disaster preparedness and recovery. This also recognizes the testament to the dedication of our IT team and underscores Vallecitos' commitment to protect the privacy of our customers, our data, and the security of our water system. Please join me in congratulating the IT division led by Chief Technology Officer Matthias Labriere for his significant accomplishments and ongoing efforts to uphold the highest standards in IT for the district. With us tonight is Mitch Cochran from MESAC. He is the award chair, and he'll be presenting our IT team this award. Mitch, if you would, please take the stand.
Great.
The podium.
All right. Well, thank you. Good evening, President Boyd Hudson, board members and staff. My name is Mitch Cochran. I'm the IT director for the cities of San Bernardino and Monrovia for 25 years, and water was a very big part of both of those cities, so very near and dear to my heart. MESAC is, and I am supporting the board tonight to present and represent the board to present the award. Municipal Information System Association of California is a statewide organization of IT professionals from over 400 cities, special districts. Association promotes peer-to-peer communication among municipalized professionals, offers personal and staff development, enrichment. We serve as advisory body to the League of California Cities, represented on the league committees, government technology, other conferences. MESAC provides a number of functions at our state level, including a statewide conference, information library, co-opted technical training that are no cost to our members, and the Excellent in IT Practices program, which is what we're here for tonight. They established a certification program to recognize exemplary achievements and performance in IT practices. The Vallecitos Water District, under the direction of Matthias, is being recognized this evening as an agency that excels in creative and efficient uses of resources in local government. The award signifies the agency has exceeded local government standards in the areas of strategic planning and budgeting, purchasing, operations, customer satisfaction, internet, project management, training, disaster prep and recovery, policies and procedures, and GS. So it's very all-encompassing. There are over 100 questions, and the questions are all prove it. It's not just a yes or no. Yes, you need your strategic plan. And what's important about this award is there are 3 IT directors that will go through every bit of that plan and look for that. And so if the plan is out of date, you will get dinged if there are things. And one of the critical parts about this is that review, but also the fact that what's really incredible about districts this size is to be able to achieve those with limited resources, because you're held to the same standards that the larger organizations are with a lot more resources. And so it's incredible what small districts can do. The award program is updated every year to meet and incorporate the new standards and best practices. Those familiar with CAFR, it's very similar to the CSMO, but I think ours is tougher. And I'm a little bit biased because I helped develop it 25 years ago. And so on behalf of MESAC, it's my distinct pleasure to present the Water District with MESAC's Award for Achievement in Information Technology Practices. It's the district's 3rd award, and all applicants are held to that higher standards I was mentioning. And I want to say congratulations, and congratulations to our friends and our team that helped build that. Thank you.
Thank you.
As usual, I'd like a photo.
Great.
Yeah, Matthias, definitely get in there for the photo.
No mask this time, right?
No mask this time.
I don't remember how many years ago that was, but I was looking through it. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Let's get the award. Board members?
Yes.
Where do you want me?
Next to the award and have the board flanking you.
Yeah, front and center.
Yeah, front and center.
Front and center.
Okay, but I want everybody to my right, so your left. So I want the award right underneath the logo. There we go. And it's good. I like us moving back a little further. I don't know if everybody noticed, but the picture was better last time, when everybody's a little further
Okay, you
back.
got me then?
You're not gonna be able to see me.
I'm counting on.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, and
Just a
grins.
minute, yeah.
We just won an award, 1, 2, 3. One more, just for good luck, 1, 2, 3. Okay, super, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You're the
Congratulations.
man.
Thank you.
Good job. Good job again.
Thank you, Matthias.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, congratulations to Matthias and Jonathan and team for keeping us safe, keeping our water supply safe, and making sure that we are operating technologically in a sound way. That award is prestigious, and it is the 3rd time we have won it. Is that correct? Congratulations. Okay, next up, recognition of Director Grosset.
Yeah, thank you. And if President Boyd Hodgson, if you may allow me to just give a first thank you to Director Grosset. Director Grosset, you've made a lasting impact in your short time here at the board that will continue. Your innovation, your ideas have driven this board to seek higher levels of returns, and those investment strategies will not only continue but also will be built upon for years to come. I personally want to thank you for our work together during this time, my first year. You made my first year on this board. I felt supported by you, and I will truly miss you. So thank you.
And I'd just like to say, I'd like to echo those sentiments, but I've had the pleasure to serve with you on the P3 committee, and I have appreciated that opportunity, and I recognize the value that you've brought to this board. So thank you for your service. Anyone else?
Yeah. You've done a great job. And particularly as the general manager has talked about the increase in revenue return. Magnificent. So good luck in the future, and we'll be talking.
Echo the same comments. It's been great to get to know you, and hopefully the friendship will not end. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to say it's been a pleasure working with you. You've been a tenacious bulldog looking for cost savings wherever you can. I enjoyed the entrepreneurial notions that you've tried to insert into this public agency, which is tough to do, but you've succeeded in giving us some great ideas. I appreciate it.
We have an award, so
Yeah, absolutely. So the board will get some exercise tonight for whenever you're ready to take another picture for the award.
we can just press leave.
Oh, it's okay, we'll take another picture.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, all of us?
yep, please.
And I understand this is not the official one. There's another one that's coming.
This is awesome.
Okay.
Everybody ready? I'm gonna take up 2 cameras, so I'm gonna take 2 on this one. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Wait. This one's for Chris.
Chris might lose his job. Yeah, no, you're pretty good at this.
I think Mike's got a better camera.
Yeah.
Guys ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. Perfect, thank you.
All right. Even if I say
So is he taking that one, or is he?
Yeah, you can still have that one, but we have another one in the mail. That one has some glue on it that ruined the paint. So we have a replacement camera. That's why.
Real quick, it's been an honor serving on the board, one of the highest honors of my life, and I really am really thankful to the staff, you all. It's been a pleasure getting to know each and every one of you, your backstories and how much you contribute to our community. It really means a world of a difference, and thank you to our general manager. It's been a pleasure working alongside you, as well as general counsel. Pleasure working alongside you, and both of you are exceptional character, true leaders in every way, shape, and form. And it's been a real pleasure working with you, and to the board. It's been a real special time serving with each and every one of you. You all make a tremendous impact on the community, and also congratulations to Jennifer, for Director Kirschbaum, for her future role here. She will do a great job, I'm sure of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar. Would any director like to pull anything from the consent calendar? Okay, then may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
So moved?
Okay, thank you, Vice President Pinnock. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Director Elletharp. Any discussion? Okay, please vote. Okay, consent items pass. Thank you. Moving on to action items. First up, we have agenda item 2.1, employee handbook revisions. And I believe we have a presentation.
Yeah, and thank you, Madam President. As they get it ready going, I'll cue it up. So the employee handbook is an item that basically gets updated periodically, but really supposed to be updated right after the MOU. And you'll hear from Denise today some of the reasons that it took delay, which including new staffing for both the district side, with Denise coming on board, and also on the association side. But with that, this has been a huge undertaking, and I just want to upfront thank Denise and her team for taking the lead on this, because this is something that is what I would consider a work pill. That is not something that people look forward to doing, diving into documents and making lots of edits and checking law to make sure we're up to date. But Denise and her team did an exemplary job, and with that, I'll hand it over to her to present it.
Thank you, General Manager Gumpel. Good evening, directors. Tonight I'm presenting the revised employee handbook. In your board packet, I provided you the summary of the changes that we made. I also made sure that you had a current copy of the handbook and the supplements. A little background, we last updated our employee handbook in 2016 with some minor changes in 2018. We last updated the MOU between the district and the Employee Association in 2023. and that will end in June of 2027. We will start negotiations in fall of 2026. The reason I bring this up is because I wanted to explain to the board in the staff report, it is actually correct in when it reflects the normal time frame for updating the employee handbook. So on the staff report, it says the employee handbook is required to be updated and presented to the board for consideration and approval within 60 working days from the date of the approved MOU. Unfortunately, we didn't make that. The reasons for the delays were COVID. We had a change with a retiring administrative services manager. We had a new HR manager hired. We had changes over the employee association leadership. But during this whole time, we have been in constant contact with the employee association, working with them collaboratively to keep this project moving forward so we can get to completion. The process for updating the employee handbook is pretty heavy. The supplements, they have many reviews. It starts with HR. We go through, we revise, update everything. Then it's sent to the general manager. From the general manager, we then send it to BB&K for legal updates and review. We next have to then send it to the association leadership for them to review and approve. Once they review, we meet with them, they go through, ask us any questions they may have, so that way when they go and talk to their constituents, they know what the employee handbook means and they're able to answer those questions. So then from there, we went ahead and sent it to the P3 committee. So we presented as an informational item to the P3 committee, the employee handbook, on September 9th, and then on October 7th, we followed up with the supplements. And then we're here today for final board approval. The reasons for updating is to refresh language, comply with legal requirements and laws, and/or because business requirements and processes have changed, so policies and procedures must be updated. We have added 4 new supplemental policies. These include telecommuting, personal protective equipment, DEI, and fraud. We now have a total of 15 supplements. This item supports the district's strategic plan, focus area number 3, workforce excellence. Specifically, it actually supports all 3 strategies. 3.1, employee engagement, 3.2, employee recruitment and retention, 3.3, employee training and development, by providing guidance that fosters employee growth, engagement, and retention. The employee handbook revision is aligned with the strategies of the workforce excellence focus areas, while also emphasizing its roles in supporting employee development. This item has no fiscal impact. Staff is recommending that board approve the revised employee handbook. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
Well, first, thank you. I know that this has been a huge undertaking, and I got to see a little bit behind the curtain being on the P3 committee, and I just want to acknowledge and thank you for this work, putting it together. It's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of interfacing with other groups and getting approval and getting revisions and integrating those revisions and then getting more revisions. And so I just want you to know that I appreciate it and thank you for your work. What comments or questions do my colleagues have?
I mean, I ditto that as well. What are you going to do now? I mean, you spent so much of your time. You could take.
I'm leaving. No, no, he has plenty of things for us to be working on.
So the time, I mean, that this truly took, hours and hours and hours and hours of your time.
Lots of meetings, lots of clarifications. We want to make sure staff understands. So even after tonight, if this gets approved tonight, we'll be going around and doing meetings to make sure staff understands all the changes, let them ask questions. Because again, this employee handbook is near and dear to HR. This is what we do discipline on. This is the rules we follow. This is our governance. So this is actually a very, very important document for an HR. So we really want to do a good job and get it passed through.
I would just like to know what was the biggest change? I mean, that you see.
Well, so there is a few big changes. One big change is, of course, the hot topic, which is marijuana. And DOT driving, so we follow federal guidelines for that. So, now that they've introduced marijuana, that we cannot use that to not hire somebody unless they're a DOT driver. So we had to update all that language to make sure we're following the new guidelines. Another thing that we worked on, which is kind of a big deal for the district, is the FMLA policy. The district had it where every January, the staff would be able to have a new 12-week period. We actually changed that to a 12-month look back. So therefore, that's not an automatic thing that happens every January. We have some indicators that we're able to go back and look at, so that's not a guarantee, so that's gonna be a big change for staff.
Some of the new policies.
Yeah, trying to
And I
think
was
of-
just your personal opinion, so I'd like to hear that, just the ones that kind of stuck out to you. So, yeah.
So like the tuition, we also changed the tuition reimbursement. If they pass, it was a B before, we brought it to a C minus. If you get a C minus, we've changed that.
You lowered the bar.
We did lower the bar, that's correct. We did add AI to the IT policy. With the DEI, those are items that we have already been doing, like, we do blind screening for applications. We redact all of your education. We don't redact your education, but we redact where you went to school at, or we redact your address. We redact anything that would give somebody a thought on bias, basically. And so even when we give the applications to the hiring managers, that stuff is all redacted, so there's no, so we have lots of changes through everything. I mean, it's been a long time since we've updated it. So
Done a
there's
great
been,
job, thank you.
we have been, even though we haven't actually formally done it in the book, we still have been following all the legal laws and things that have come forward, even though our manual wasn't updated, because we have to. So we have been, we're in compliance.
Nice. Thank you, thank you.
So several of our departments, when we undertake, or when staff undertakes a large project like this, there's recognition to be had. We just saw this from IT tonight. Is there a type of benefit that, this could be submitted somewhere as, to be held up as exemplary, or to bring about some recognition to your department, other than just your boss?
Yeah,
Like,
unfortunately, this is like a
somewhere
normal HR business
Okay.
process thing.
Okay.
So there wouldn't be any awards, because we actually should be having this updated sooner than 2018. So I wouldn't want an award for that. But I'm super happy that moving forward, we will be in compliance. So
Great.
that is going to be really good, because I don't like being out of compliance either. So,
Sure.
yeah, this is just unfortunately one of those lists that HR, this is what we do. This is what he hired us for.
Great, okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Just triple checking, this was reviewed by BBK and is.
Oh, yes,
Good to go.
many times we have to send everything back and forth, yeah, because we definitely want to use the legal language. We don't want to use our interpretation of it, because if we do have to use it to go to court or something, this is who will be going to court for us. So we want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great work.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have no public speakers for this, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to thank staff. It sounds like it was a monumental undertaking, but again, thank you for all the hard work. And I would move staff's recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, please vote. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to action item 2.2, amendment of the Conflict of Interest Code pursuant to the Political Reform Act of 1974 biennial review and adoption.
Yes, thank you, President Board Hodgins. So this item is basically an update based on current laws. The board packet, within the board packet, it was supplied the existing and the changes. The changes are mainly more statutory and standard, but it is a requirement that the board adopt the new Conflict of Interest Code and that become part of our administrative documents. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Is someone going to present this information or no?
No, this is just it's an updated thing. It basically happens pretty much annually, so.
Okay,
Is this a note and file?
No, it requires board adoption, so I requested the board adopt the documents as presented, so, which is shown in the staff report and the attachments.
okay.
With that, I'll move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Hernandez. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Director Grosset. Any further discussion or questions about this item? Okay, seeing none, please vote. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving to agenda item 2.3, prepayment of San Diego County Water Authority fixed charges for calendar year 2025. Do we have any public speakers for this agenda item?
No, Madam President.
Okay,
So while staff gets this queued up, I will, actually, I think they're already up, or just about. So the Water Authority this year has offered all water agencies an opportunity to prepay our fixed costs. Our fixed costs, the way they revolve on a 7-year average window. So they're fixed this year, no matter whether we sell more water or less water. This year's costs are fixed, they're unchanging. So with that, the Water Authority's offered a discount, and staff has evaluated that discount, and we're here today to make a recommendation to the board. With that, I'll hand it over to Michael Arthur to do a presentation on it.
Thank you, General Manager Gumpel. President Boyd Hodgson, members of the board. So normally you'll see when I present, I normally have like 48 ounces of Pepsi or something like that for my caffeine. I only have half that amount today. So the only thing that's going to keep me alert is my love of numbers, and also my desire to do public presentations. So with that, as General Manager explained, the Water Authority, in order to improve their cash flow position, they've offered the 22 agencies the ability to prepay, I gotta go over here, their fixed charges. So a little bit of that, if we pay by January 2nd of 2025, they'll give us a 4% discount. Normally, we would pay this amount monthly, and the monthly amount is $655,000 and change. So that amounts to about $7.8 million annually. The upfront discount of that, 4% of that, is $314,000. Normally, you'd think, oh, great, we save $314,000, but you also have to consider the opportunity cost. What could we have done with that money during that time? So real quick, I just have a quick slide on that. There's the calculation of the $314,000. The district could otherwise invest that money. Now, interest rates are declining, so I did a couple different quick scenarios to just show the minimum amount that we could potentially save. So if we were able to invest that money at 4.75%, the interest that we would lose is about $228,000, so netting that, we'd actually have a net savings of about $86,000. As interest rates decline, the savings to the district would increase. So I'm projecting somewhere around $100,000 at a minimum that we would save by prepaying. I've asked the Water Authority how many of the 22 agencies have actually took them up on this offer, and the last number I heard was 2, but it could be a couple more. So we're in a fortunate position through good management from the board of having the reserve funds available to do something like this. So it allows us to save more money. And the other thing, before I get into my next presentation, which is on rates, is when we do look at rates, we always look at different innovative ways to save money. A couple of years ago, the CFO looked at paying off our accrued liability from CalPERS, and that saved us a lot of money. Many years ago, we looked at pre-funding OPEB. That saved us a lot of money. So we're looking at some of those innovative things to try to save us money. And this is actually one that's on a uncontrollable cost that we are able to achieve some savings on. So that's actually very good news. So with that, staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to execute the contract with the San Diego County Water Authority, allowing the prepayment of $7,550,000 and $50,104 for the total fixed charges due in calendar year 2025, with payment occurring on or before January 2nd, 2025. And real quick, I think the staff report said it was January 3rd, 2025, which was the initial information I got from the Water Authority. It's just changed by a day. I just wanted to make sure we recognize that. I don't want to be late in prepaying this, because then they don't give us as much of the discount.
so I'll ask you the same question that I've asked the general manager, just for the benefit of the public. 2 things really. Number one, did we negotiate that 4%? Is there any, could we move them a little bit more, especially since there are only 2 of us and we're essentially doing them a favor?
Yeah, no, because they've done their kind of calculations on it. If you look on it on the surface, they're actually losing money. Whatever money's not created, right? Whatever money we save, they're kind of losing. But in a way, if they were to have to get a loan or go out for debt, they would probably be paying more than this. So in a way, it is kind of a win-win situation, but they've already done their cost-benefit analysis and
Okay.
come up with 4%.
Okay, and my other question is, for the benefit of the public, can you talk a little bit about what are the fixed charges? What does that mean?
Sure, so the fixed charges, and I have it, if you give me 1 second. So the fixed charges are the charges that regardless of how much water the district buys, purchases from the water authority, they're set in stone for that year. And those include charges for, and this is the water authority charging, imposing onto us, customer service, storage, supply reliability, capacity reservation, readiness to serve, transportation, and the infrastructure access charge. And they're kind of many of the similar charges that we pass on to our ultimate customer as well.
Okay. What other comments do folks have? Yes.
I don't disagree with your math. Clearly, it is what it is. We don't know what the interest rates are going to be. We don't know if inflation will make a comeback next year, and maybe interest rates could go up. That being said, my problem is with the liquidity of the money and just giving away $7.5 million straight up instead of holding on to it because there are so many uncertainties around the corner. It's the difference of like anywhere between 40 grand and 140 grand, and I don't think that's a world of a difference when it comes to this, and I am all for bulldogging and saving money, but I'd personally rather see the district hold on to that money for the uncertainties that lay ahead of us.
If I may, one caveat to that is they're not getting the full $7.5 million for all 12 months. So think of it as kind of a waterfall. We're paying $7.5 million up front, you are correct. But then after month one, we would have paid $650,000 monthly, right? So that $7.5 million would go down to $6.9 million. The next month it'd go down to 6.3, et cetera. So it's really, after 12 months, we've prepaid zero. We're caught up. And in that time, we have saved this. In terms of interest rates, so really the question should be, what's the break-even point? What could we invest that money in? For each quarter of a percent, it's about $12,000. So it would take another 7 times almost 1.75%, 6.5% is really the break-even point for this, that we would have to be able to invest that money in on our own to make it break even. So anything less than that, meaning we're making money.
And just to add to that, it's only for 1 year, so we looked at it from a staffing standpoint on a risk basis of can we get into the higher interest rates by the end of 2025. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball, we don't know, but there's no obligation that it continues to the 26, 27. And then Wes and his team also looked at the liquidity portion of it based on our existing reserves. That money is allocated to move out of our account within the 12 months. So there was no difference from a long-range planning, and the difference on the upfront cost was pretty insignificant. It was more, doesn't make sense with the opportunity
But is that
cost.
coming from the reserve, or is that just
It's coming,
operating?
it's coming from our operations reserves on water. Wes, if you want to add more to that?
No, you said it perfectly. Because of the short-term nature of this, it's going to be, over 1 year, and there are savings. It kind of just makes sense to take advantage of it, because it's going to catch up in 1 year, and
I get that. I guess my question is like, doesn't this money, this $650 that you have to spend every month, come from like our operating fund, not the reserves? And you're talking about drawing from the reserves.
Well, they might, yeah, they are, it's correct. They end up being one and the same. Any excess of revenues over expenses goes into reserves. Anything we pay out prematurely comes out of reserves. So it'll go right back in there. So this $85,000 is just an extra $85,000 in revenue for the district that we would have been paying this money anyway. So we're just taking advantage of $85,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that being said, there's an acknowledgement that if interest rates were to shoot up, and that's the risk, above what,
About 6.5%.
about 6.5%, then this would be a bet we're keeping our money in, and it also depends on the timing of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So then that would be keeping our money in our own reserves and investing it would be a better call.
Yeah, and I guess beyond those 2 points that I just made, is that just new administration coming in, lots of uncertainties, tariffs, all of this talk of really world-changing stuff going on, and nobody knows if it'll be to our benefit or our detriment, and, you know, could rapidly inflate to maybe well beyond 6.5%, 7%, you know? So something to consider. And I don't know, I'm just never a fan of writing a $7.5 million check right off the bat when you can hold on to that money and it's not a huge difference in savings. I mean, to Director President Boyd Hodgson's point, if they were negotiable to 6 to 8%, that would be a much more worthy to do. I would still kind of question it, but I would lean in the yes direction there. But here, I'd prefer to hang on to the $7.5 million. But I'm just one director here. Thanks.
Question. So has this been offered before by the authority, and have we taken advantage of it?
No, it has not. This is the first time, and as General Manager Campbell mentioned, it is a one-time. Now, we don't know if it's going to be a one-time again next year, but right now it is a one-time offer.
It's because of their money concerns that they have.
Right.
Their shortage.
Yeah, the water authority finds itself in need, and this is kind of a way they could fill that need. But a lot of agencies don't have the reserves or the reserve balances to be able to accommodate that, even though they see a real savings. So talking to not all, but many of the general managers, they see benefit, but then from them, they have a liquidity issue because they don't have the reserve balances enough to accommodate it. So we're in a unique position where we do have the reserve balance to accommodate it, and we see a calculated benefit, albeit it's based on a little bit of an unknown, but it's still based on fairly conservative numbers.
And a follow-up, is those fixed costs, have those gone up over the years?
Tremendously, and you'll see in my next presentation, at least the fixed charges from year to year, but yes, tremendously.
From year to year, but not during, they can't increase those?
Correct, they're frozen for the year. So every January 1st, they will be reevaluated.
And you're going to show that slide, how they've gone up over the years?
I don't have the history of it. I can get that for you.
It's curiosity.
Yeah.
Interesting, thank you.
And General Manager Gumpel, the explanation that you just gave about the other agencies, that's your speculation about why only 2 agencies are taking advantage of this opportunity?
Yes, I don't know with certainty, but talking to the other general managers, the general consensus is most of them see a savings, but not all of them have the ability to take advantage to get the savings.
And where would this leave us with our floor and ceiling?
Wes, you can help me on that.
You want me to go to that slide?
The floor and ceiling? We may not need to.
Okay.
So we are able to have the liquidity to do this because we have, per our reserve policy, we have 6 months of operating reserves that we have to keep liquid. We're required to, per that policy. We also have to keep liquid enough to fund our CIP for the year. And that's, this year's projects, which are about $30 million. So we have approximately $40 to $50 million in camp right now. Some of that may be designated, if it's above those 2 amounts, to be sent to our investment advisors, which they would invest in longer term. But our short term is the 6 months of operating reserves plus this year's CIP. So that's for this year. We have the ability to take some of that money, send it here, which we'd be paying anyway, because it's in effect being drawn down. It's not $7.5 million for the whole year. Every month it goes down by the $650,000. So it's really just taking money we're going to have sitting in camp for the year and that's reducing, sending it here for an additional $85,000. That's how we're able to be able to do this and have the liquidity.
And actually, just to add to that, if you think about it this way, we're fronting the cost, but then through savings, we're reimbursing ourselves. So at the end of 1 year, which is very short term from a financial planning standpoint, based on the math, we'll be ahead from where we would have been.
So real quick, just to add on that, if at the end of the 12-month period we would have had $40 million in reserves, we're now going to have $40,100,000 in reserves by repaying. So.
Sure. So, I'm also thinking about other things that we might have to spend our reserves on. So, for example, if we have a wet year, or if we, as a board, decide not to raise the rates to the full flush number that the County Water Authority is going to charge us. And that also, we have to make up that balance in reserves. So factoring all of those things in, can we afford to pay $7 million right now?
Yes.
Okay.
How often are camp interest rates adjusted?
Daily.
Daily?
Yeah, so right now I think it's 5.04% in camp currently.
5.04?
Yep. And the majority of our liquid funds are there. We have about 5 million in LAIF, which is around 4.4%, I believe. And ours sit at 4.28, but that's the combined long-term and short-term investments.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to see the famous reserve graph, if you've got it, and to show the impact of this.
Well, it actually doesn't show the
It
impact.
doesn't show the impact, but we can kind of, oops, I stopped sharing crap.
If you think
I'm
about
not
it,
good at this.
the impacts aren't really shown, because what at the end of the day, we have $100,000 more in reserves than we started. So from Madam President's concerns, you actually end up being in a better position when you base, but the only real assumption is interest rates don't go above 6.5. And that is a true just assumption.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, this $85,000 will have minimal impact on the reserve balances in relation to the floor anyway. And annually, same thing, because we're gonna send out 7.5 right now. But we're, as you've seen in the graph, the famous graph, we're closer to the ceiling currently. Sending this out will give us a little bump down, but then we should kind of come back up until we spend it on CIP during the year.
So this is my slide for the next presentation, but right now we're ended 2024 at about $45 million. We're projected to end this current fiscal year at 31 million, 32 million. The end number is still going to be the same, 32 million. It's just when it's coming out. It's going to come out faster, but then as we would have paid the 655,000 every month, it'll be at the same spot plus whatever savings we do achieve.
I got it. Yeah.
So just to paraphrase everything, you're gonna write a $7.5 million check, and then you're gonna take the 650 that you would have sent them, you're gonna put that back into reserves continuously for 12 months. I'm just recapping. Now I'm coming to what another way to look at this is that for us, it's actually a low interest loan itself. You know, like that $7.5 million we have at a low interest rate. So I'm always a fan of having options, and you're gonna, to your point, see that drop fairly tremendously from somewhere in the line of, we'll call it 45 to now in the high 30s, so.
Yeah, majority of the movement in the reserves are planned financial expenditures through CIP and not through operational funds.
Yep.
So.
Just a lot of uncertainty next year, something to consider.
Just one quick comment. Sorry, all these comments. It's just, and now Craig is on, our Director of Health Ops on the San Diego County Water Authority Board. Looking at a bigger picture, by us helping, writing them a $7.5 million check, hopefully long-term that'll help them not raise our rates as much. Does this have any effect in that whatsoever?
I'm afraid not. I think it's more to improve their short-term cash flow timing than anything, just given the amount of rate increase.
So we're helping our neighbor,
Yeah,
short-term,
and we're making a little bit of money.
and we're saving $315K.
Well, about $100K
I know.
when you think of the opportunity cost.
No offense, but this sounds like a little bit like girl math. You know, my wife goes and says, "Hey, I'm going to spend
I'm
$7
sorry.
million."
I'm sorry. Did you just say? I'm sorry.
I just saved
You know,
a discount.
no. I need to take you back there. What did you just say?
I call it my wife's math.
I don't think that's exactly what you said.
There's such a thing.
A girl math?
No, wife's math. I don't know if it's
Oh.
girl, wife math.
Okay.
Where I went and spent $200, but I saved $300 to spend the $200. So I don't know. I'm just trying to correct the. I knew that would get a
I'm going
rise
to
out
bring
of
you
you.
a shovel
I knew
next
it. I
time.
knew
I'm going
it.
to bring you a
rise.
shovel.
You were just getting a little sleep. I wanted to get a rise out of you there. So
Well, it worked.
I knew.
You're so red. Your face is so red.
Yeah, you got me. I was hoping to slip that through. See, you get it though, right?
No, don't, Stop.
So I'm just, because I see what Director Grosset is saying, you know, we're spending 7.5 to save 300.
Well,
And-
no, it's, sorry, and we're gonna spend 7.8. With this discount, we send
Correct.
7.5.
I see what you're saying.
Okay, and then
See,
if
that's
we,
that math again.
yeah, but we're saving a real 300 up front. However, it's not really 300, because we could have invested that money over time. Now, it's decreasing every month by 655,000, and the table that you see is the delta between the 314,000 and the opportunity cost that we're missing out on. So it's not a $300,000 savings, it's a roughly $100,000 savings.
Correct.
And fully acknowledge that if interest rates go through the roof,
Those are going to be smaller.
it could be smaller or be negative compared to what our cash position is going to. So this is more of an investment strategy, kind of along the lines of what Director Grosset was saying, is we're, in this case, hedging the fact that this essentially investment strategy with the discount is going to pay higher than us investing the money ourselves. That's really what it comes down to.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes.
Preferably ones that aren't sexist. Thank you.
It was not.
Do we have any opportunity to negotiate with them and tell them, hey, listen, that's a great idea, but we would like to get 5%?
That's an excellent question.
It is an excellent question.
No, so
That's
the
an answer.
Water Authority has gone through a full analysis. They initially started with the managers at a lower percentage, and the managers came back and said that's not even a starter. It's There's no way that could accommodate that, especially with the opportunity cost lost. So they basically, I don't know how they came to that number, but that's the number they came to. Now, the Water Authority needs to fix its cash position, presumably. And in reality, the Water Authority will be worse off from a total cash over the year if every agency did this. But if the Water Authority is in a position where they may have to take out a loan to fund its operational costs, not long-term CIP, then this becomes an offsetting cost savings for them. Basically, when I say cost savings, it costs them less to do this. They lose less money to do this, if that makes sense. And that's all presumed, because Water Authority has not come out and officially said, we need this to fund operations. There's no statement of that sort.
So that sort of begs the question, do we know what the Water Authority's calculus is around how many of us need to actually do this in order for this to not come back and bite us later on as the group of member agencies?
Yeah, so as far as the long-term effect of the Water Authority's financial health, I can't answer that.
Okay, right.
But as far as the general comments of any agency taking advantage of this, if there's a win-win, is a benefit to the water agency. But if every agency took advantage of this, the Water Authority would actually have to look at maybe retracting the offer, because that's just too much loss.
I feel like I'm trying to buy something on Instagram and there's like a flashing button that says limited time offer, and it's not all quite.
Essentially for the board to consider is, we're gonna end up spending $7.8 million on fixed costs. That's a guarantee.
Yep.
Over 12 months. We have an opportunity to pay in $7.5 million instead of 7.8. And the only really thing that's debatable here is, what are the future interest outlooks? Is there a savings? And that's really what it comes down to.
And the unknowns, and just having the optionality of having that money for what happens in the next year.
Right, remember this is an additional money coming out of reserves. It's coming out, and as Director Grosset said, it's being put back in every month, and it's a 12-month short term.
And the other thing to mention is that our options are limited. We basically have camp at our maximum return. We really can't go long-term with this money, so we can't, it's camp or nothing. So camp would have to go to 6.25%, and even when inflation was at 8%, it wasn't that high, it was 5.54. So it's unlikely that it would get to 6.25%. We're gonna have savings. The other thing to mention is, we've already hit on it, the fact that the Water Authority is asking for this money is not a good sign. They need help, and we're helping them out doing this, and we're achieving savings. So hopefully it will help us in the future with the water authority, because they need this, otherwise they probably have to go out for debt. If they go out for debt, it hurts us in the future too.
I will move staff's recommendation. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Director Elletharp. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, please vote. Okay, we have 3 yes and 1 no. The motion passes. Thank you. Thank you for that robust discussion.
I think you have 4 yes.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
3.
I'm sorry, 4. Thank you.
It was a good discussion.
It was a
Most of it was good.
Okay. Agenda item 2.3. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 2.4, 2025 water rates update.
Yeah, so again, while Mike teased this up, I'll just do a quick intro. As the board is aware that we have currently, we're in the middle of our 5-year 218 process. So today we're considering, and every year the board considers the rate adjustments based on our 218, which basically codifies the maximum rate pass-throughs, both for internal costs for district and also for the water authority, which are wholesale water costs. So those are basically set through our process, through our 218 process and our current rate structure. With that, we're in the middle of that existing 5-year 218, and we're looking at the normal pass-through costs starting in calendar year 2026. With that, I'll hand it over to our finance team.
I'm sorry, you said 2026? Did you mean 2025?
2025, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Yes, starting 2025. I have 2026 numbers that just came across the board from Water Authority, so.
Thank you again, General Manager. As he explained, we had let me go on my calendar first. Or I'll start the presentation. So real quick, I always like to go into the acronyms that we use in case there's any new members of the board or new public out there. So Cost of Service Study, COSS, San Diego County Water Authority, SDCWA, Single Family Residence, which is the majority of our customers, 18 to 20,000 customers, SFR. When we talk about the average single-family residence, we're talking about a single-family residence with a 5/8 or really 5/8 or 3/4 inch meter that uses 13 units of water per month. The fixed charge readiness to serve, RTS, and the infrastructure access charge, which is another fixed charge from the San Diego Water Authority, is IAC. So the calendar then, this 5-year Prop 218 that General Manager referred to actually started back in 2000, maybe the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, but that's when COVID was around, and it took a lot longer to get this passed through, working with the consultant. So we did present everything to the Finance Committee originally in 2021. The public hearing and the approval of the Prop 218 and the 5-year mechanism was in September of 2022. And then each year we have to come to the board, even though the rates are identified in the Prop 218 for the full 5 years, we need to come to the board every year for the approval of the board. We went to the Finance Committee 3 weeks ago on October 30th and gave them pretty much the same presentation I'm going to give you today. And then we're here hopefully today to approve rates for 2025. Okay, so real quick, just the cost of service study process. We are not changing any mechanism, any changes in methodology with what I'm going to present today. It's all contained within the Prop 218. So everything was already identified. So I just kind of wanted to go off of that it's nothing new in terms of strategy. So it all starts with a budget document. We prepare our budget, and that determines what our revenue requirement is for the year. And from that revenue requirement, let's just say it's $50 million, we have to allocate it to our certain customer classes with the intent that no one customer class is going to subsidize the other. So that's all what the cost of service study does. And all that develops the rate design. And we have to be in compliance with Prop 218, as I mentioned. We did do a 5-year Prop 218, which probably in retrospect was not a good idea. We also included some caps in there, which in retrospect is probably not a good idea because we didn't realize that interest rates and inflation would go as crazy as they would. And then, as I mentioned, it is indexed annually with board approval, and it's not your typical index like CPI because we bring in different factors like what's passed through the water authority, our desal, and our internal costs. So it's a combination of all those things. So as I mentioned, it's kind of alignment of all the rate revenues collected so that no one class pays more than the other. They pay their own way. Oops. And there's an allocation on the fixed component, which we've talked about, and I'll go into a little bit more, which is the ready to serve, and the variable commodity portion. And again, our limits are 6.5% on each of the fixed and the variable. And you'll see there'll be some shocking information here in a minute. So, hope you're all seated. The pass-through from the Water Authority for fixed charges is 30%. So I believe, was it Director Pinnock, you asked about the history of fixed charges. So it's 30% this year. That's at $7.8 million. It was 5.9, 5.8, 5.7, I don't know the exact number, last year, and it's gone up steadily. Now, I'll show you
I'm
part of it.
sorry, you said it was 5.7 last year?
5.7 million.
Oh, okay.
5.7 million, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
not
5.7
percentage.
million
Okay.
to 7.8 million or something like that. What comes to the 30%? Now, part of that is really reallocation, and I'll show that in a second. The commodity portion, the actual retail portion, went up 8.7%, and these aren't additive. You can't go down and say 30 and make it 38.7%. They're a prorated share. So the overall increase to the district is 12.2%. If you remember, the Water Authority, I believe, gave a 14% number or 14.4% number. That's an all-in cost for the average of all 22 agencies. Kind of like, I'm going to tell you the overall average single-family residence is $111 when I get to that. It's not each customer. Everyone will be a little bit different. Some agencies will see a 15% increase, some will see a 13%. The reason why ours is 12.2 is for one of the first times ever is desal is actually good news for us. Desal only went up like 5.8, 5.9%. So that brought our overall increase down. Normally desal is the most expensive and the highest increasing water supply cost. This time it actually helped offset some of these costs. So our overall average hit to the district is 12.2%. And as I mentioned, per board action, when we passed the Prop 218, we're limited to 6.5% cap on each of those line items. So if, for example, the commodity increase was only 0%, I can't take some of that fixed cost and put it into commodity per our 218. So the internal costs are projected to increase 4.4%. So I wanted to show you this in the bottom left corner, and I'll have a bigger picture on the next slide, is the actual Water Authority's charges for next year. And let me bring that up. So you'll see on the left side it's a calendar year. Theirs is all calendar year 24 current adopted rates, and in their board adopted rates for 2025. And you'll see one line item, transportation, it looks like it's going down from $189 to $141. This is why the fixed charge gone up 30%. They actually moved a lot of that transportation charge to fixed charges. So they were at zero. The Water Authority is trying to capture more of their revenue on fixed charges to stabilize their revenue stream. So they moved some of their volumetric charges to fixed charges. So I do have a little chart. Oh, we don't get untreated PSAR water, so I wanted to remove that. So overall, our melded supply rate, that's the actual cost of the water, has gone up about 13%. The treatment rate from the Water Authority is going up 25%. The transportation rate that I mentioned, even though it looks like it's going down $48, if you include that $30 million, bring it up above the line, the overall transportation cost to the district is going up 24%. The IAC infrastructure access charge, just 4.6%. The customer service charge, 19%. Storage charge, about 15.6%, and the supply reliability charge, 18%. So these are some astronomical numbers that are coming to us from the Water Authority that we really have no control over. If you remember my pump zone analysis that I did a couple of months ago, I talked about too, you're back in your college days and you're sharing a dorm or renting a house with 4 other people, and there's 5 of you in the house or apartment, and let's say your rent back in the day was $1,000. Your share of that is $200. If one of your roommates moves out, even though the cost didn't go up, your share just went up from $200 to $250. So your cost just went up 25%. Why I bring that up is if you remember, we just had 2 agencies leave the district, well, the water authority. So before, last year, there were 24 agencies to allocate these fixed costs to. Now there's 22. So that analogy of the roommates kind of holds here, where the actual percentage increase is greater than it otherwise would have been had all 24 agencies still been a member of the water authority. So that is one of the driving factors of that 30% as well. And let me just make sure there wasn't anything else on that one. Okay. So what does that mean for our rates? Well, up on the board then is our proposed rates for the 2025 calendar year. Tiered rates, the commodity portion of $471, $593, $994, compared to our current $435, $555, $943. You don't have to take out your calculators right now. I did the math for you. I'll show you what that means in a minute.
This is per unit.
Per unit
This
of
is,
water.
this is increase per unit.
Increase per unit of water, correct. Rate per unit, yes. And the unit is the 748 gallons of water, or
Sorry, this is not increase. It is the cost of.
the cost,
Okay.
the cost that we're proposing to charge to the customer.
Gotcha.
And I'll show you the increase of the average customer, because that's what we're really concerned about.
Thank you.
In the long run. So the fixed charges are broken down between the water authority pass-through charges, the IAC pass-through charges from the water authority, and our own internal costs. If you look on the top right, you'll see those San Diego County Water Authority pass-through charges of $11.76. And then down here, I put what the rates would be if we weren't limited to that 6.5%. The actual charge from the water authority, when I divide it by our customers, is actually $15.10. We're only charging the customer $11.76 because that's all we can legally do right now. So we're under collecting $3.34 per month per customer. So when I show you the rates in a minute per customer, we're actually undercharging what we really should be charging. We're losing money on that. And the same with the commodity. If you look on the top line on the left, the commodity charges that we're proposing for next year is $5.36 per unit of water on just the water authority portion right there. The cost, again, dividing it by our number of units that we're selling, is about $5.57. So we are subsidizing, losing 21 cents per unit of water that we otherwise would have passed through had we not had a 6.5% cap on our rates.
And just to add, if you look at the other lines, you can see what our internal costs are on the water bill. So that's what, for Vallecitos, that's what we need to cover our costs on the average water bill, that 12 cents for tier 1, 81 cents for tier 2. And then what in red is what basically are discretionary funds, basically funds that aren't tied to one of our enterprise funds, that in the 218 process, the board basically adopted and utilizing 95%, or almost 100% of our funds towards rate offsetting. So we are using that, and as property tax revenue or anything increases, those numbers increase. Unfortunately, those numbers don't keep the pace of what the water authority increases are. So the offsets amount, percentage-wise, gets smaller.
Thank you. So the overall rated to serve charge would be $41.72 proposed versus our current $39.74. So what does that mean? Really, this is the bottom line. What does that really mean to our overall average single-family residence using the 13 units of water a month? These are our current rates of $104.69, as James mentioned. A portion of that is VWD charges. That's almost $24. The remaining $80 is water authority charges. And again, that's lower than it should be. That's how much we can collect. This is last year's numbers. Let me get to this year's numbers. So proposed for 2025, the average single-family residence would see an increase from $104 to $111. And again, I'll do the math for you. That's $6.80, or 6.5%. Of that $6.80, $1.51 of that increase is VWD, and the remaining, I have it down here, $5.29 is the water authority pass-through.
And I'm sorry, this is commodity and
Yes,
fixed
this is
altogether.
everything all in,
Okay.
right? This is all in. So as I mentioned, without the 6.5% cap, if I were to recalculate these rates and use just the costs and charges that I showed you on that chart a couple slides ago, the average single-family residence would be about $118.04. So compare that to our current rates, that'd be a $13.35 increase or 12.8%. So really, overall, all in, we're under collecting by about $6.55 per customer per month. And eventually, we're gonna have to catch up to that. Right now, because of that under collection, about 3.1 million of that is coming from reserves annually. And last year, it was less than $1 million. So it's a cumulative increasing amount that we need to address. And we have that in the budget to address that. So this is a slide that we just showed a minute ago, the reserve balances. And I won't go too much all into the reserves, but the green line is our floor, the blue line's our ceiling, and the yellow line is what's projected in the budget. It's important to note that this yellow line includes the rates that I'm presenting today, as well as an estimate for future rate increases. We are not asking you to approve any future increases. The one thing I want to iterate and make clear is that if the water authority doesn't come through, their original projections were 39% over 3 years, 40% over 3 years. And James, you mentioned that there was like several billions of dollars that weren't budgeted from MET that would have increased that number?
Yeah, that's correct. The Water Authority, at the GM meeting, they announced that there's probably another 8% MET increases that weren't anticipated or in any long-range plans that'll hit in 26 and 27. So that's why I accidentally said 26. 26 is already on my mind.
So that 39% is really a little bit higher than that for that unknown 8% that they're saying. So what I want to kind of reiterate, and because sometimes maybe I don't communicate it enough, is that if that 39% doesn't materialize, and let's say next year I heard numbers of like 19% or I don't know what they were for next year. Let's say it was 15% next year, and I put that in my analysis. If they only come in at 10, that's all I'm going to put in my analysis. I deal with actual numbers. When we plan for the future, obviously it's a crystal ball, but we do with our best guess. But when I'm setting rates, I do with actual rates because we're going to be doing it now with the budget. So just wanted to kind of reiterate that if we find savings, if the water authority doesn't come through with increases like we thought, we will capture those. And if for some reason the water authority would decrease their rates, we would actually pass on that decrease to our customers. I just wanted to make that clear. So again, this yellow line is the reserve line with all the anticipated increases that are in the budget, specifically for the January 1st, 2025. I kind of wanted to show the next slide. What I'll show is if we didn't do the increases that we're recommending on January 25, but still did all the future increases, what would those reserves look like? And that's what the next slide shows. So the yellow line, and I'll toggle back and forth once or twice. The yellow line you'll see is going below the floor. Currently, we're projected to use a little bit of the reserves, but then level out and be slightly above the minimum. But if we don't pass through this January 1st, 2025 increase and still pass through the 26, 27 increases, we will be below by about $8 million by 2028.
And our floor is set by ordinance or by state law?
It's set by policy, by resolution, actually.
And how does that compare with other agencies? Do we have a conservative floor? Do we have a floor that's in the
I'm glad you
middle?
asked. Yeah, we actually.
Are you glad?
I'm glad you asked.
Okay.
Our floor is actually very conservative, and we've compared it to other agencies as well as industry best practices. One thing that is very important to note, we're actually doing the asset management replacement program, and through that we're going through and we're looking at the cost, historical cost, as well as replacement value of all of our assets, and that really is what probably should be used for determining our floor. Currently, we're using the historical cost, which has been ENR'd, which is basically like a CPI or an inflation index, to bring it to today's cost from historical cost, which can be as old as 50 years old. So we're using that, and it's a good method for doing it, but if you were to look at our assets realistically, as in the asset management replacement program, they're going to cost a lot more to replace than we're anticipating using the floor. And as you know, the floor is 3 years of projected system replacement costs. So if we use actual replacement value, our floor is very conservative.
Yeah, and just to be clear, it's interpretation from finance lingo to normal lingo. When he says conservative, the floor should be higher.
Yes.
not lower. The floor, we should have, the floor should be higher, and if that floor was higher, that yellow line would have a bigger gap
Right.
in the negative red.
Thank you for that clarification, because that's not what I was thinking you were saying.
When we say conservative, we mean we've set it as low as possible, right? So we've really
Okay.
set as low as possible, so we'd have to hold on to as little reserves as necessary, and that's our floor.
Okay.
So we're being conservative there. It actually should probably be a lot higher, but we've taken that approach.
Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to show what makes up those reserves, and this is from the budget. Next slide. It's from the budget. Hold on 1 second. So our total budget for this year is about 54 million. And I showed the next 5 years, just to show you that we don't look at things in a vacuum. We kind of project out for the 5 years. But what I did is I took out, from that 54 million, I took out our non-controllable costs, the cost of water, electricity. Then I also backed out some of the other mandated costs like regulatory, legal, district insurance to come up with what our budget, our controllable costs are of the budget. And you'll see they range from 13 million to 16 million over the next 5 years. Then I backed out, on the next slide, I backed out our cost of labor because that's negotiated through the MOU. And it shows that the remaining controllable costs of the budget is about $2.6 million, $2.6 million, and holds kind of steady over the next 5 years. And this is cost for everything, the rest of our costs, our contracts, our chemicals, our supplies, everything else. Yeah. So this year, we mentioned we're actually budgeting to lose $4.6 million. That's how much the district is absorbing by under collecting from our customers, due mainly to that 6.5% limit.
And if I could jump in there for a minute, Mike, we would never normally budget a loss, really any loss. We should be budgeting 0 or above. We want to come in 0, we want to recover all of our costs. That's how we operate. We're a nonprofit organization. In addition to that, we have to plan to fund future replacement of infrastructure. So if we were to budget above 0, it means we're planning to replace existing infrastructure. So to see us budget at a loss of $4.6 million, the only reason that we're doing that is because we have to, because we're capped by the amount we can raise rates. So this would normally never happen, and you'll see in the 5-year plan, we've budgeted to recover that and no longer have a loss by 2028. That's our strategy. That's one of the things the rating agencies are going to look at, and they're going to say you've got a loss. If we remained at a loss for any extended period of time, it's not sustainable. It doesn't reflect well upon us. We'd lose our ratings. It would be very bad for the district.
And I'm sorry, the 3 years where there's not a loss budgeted, that is meaning that we would pass through the full amount of costs. So we would not set a cap. We would just do whatever the
Yes.
percentage was that was required or suggested by San Diego County.
Correct. There are certain assumptions built into the 5-year plan, and again, as Mike mentioned, we're only approving ever a 1-year budget, and it's going to happen year to year as we make those changes. But for this, in order for us to recover, we had to make certain assumptions, such as if they're going to do 39% over the 3 years, what rate increases do we need to recover those rate increases from the Water Authority? So we built in certain rate increases in 26, 27, 28 to get us to where we need to be to no longer have a budgeted loss.
And what are those percentage increases?
So I believe the first one, 26, I think we've assumed about a 19% rate increase to recover the amount that's not being recovered this year.
Sorry, 19% from the Water Authority or 19% directly to our customers?
19% to our customers.
Yeah, and just to be clear, so as we have a gap, and the further that gap gets, the larger our increase will need to be to recover. So the fact that right now we're locked in at 6.5%, that's creating that gap. And then if we recover, and of course it's at the pleasure of the board, you'll see all the numbers. At that point, it's a larger gap. So anytime you delay the recovery, then the problem becomes a bigger problem the next year.
Right, so the jump would need to be that 656 or whatever, 655. It would be the 655 plus whatever we need, and that's why you get to the 19%. But then years after that, I think it's 6.
Yeah, and I know it
6 to
sounds
8.
I know it sounds shocking when I say 19%. I couldn't even have ever imagined saying that to you, especially out loud or in a boardroom. But for now, remember, it's an assumption. We'll readdress it next year. Hopefully, things are better than they are right now, and it won't come to that. Outer years have lesser rates, and we can move it around sort of. So if we did 19 and 14, we might be able to do 14, and you know, the next year's going to be more. But there are options when we get there, and we'll deal with them on an annual basis. We just had to make certain assumptions built in this budget to show that we're going to do what's necessary so that we're budgeting a zero budget in order to fund our operations.
In the history of the district, have water rates ever gone down? Or maybe not in the history, but in the last 20 years, have water rates ever gone down?
They have not gone, I've only been here 10 years, so I'm only going to answer for that. During the 10 years, they have not gone down. However, in our old Prop 218s, we would set a max, and we wouldn't say any pass-throughs. We would say, for example, it'd be $4.50 for Tier 1. And we have, in a couple of instances, set that rate at $4.40, even though we were allowed by the Prop 218 to set it at $4.50. So we didn't increase them as much as we could have. So rates have never gone down in my 10 years here. Part of that was also due to the fact that we brought on desal at the time too, so.
And also rate increases have been larger, but it's been a while since that's happened. So in the most recent history, last 10, 12 years, what the water authority increases are from a short history, relatively historic, but if you go back to the 90s, they were looking at 30, 40% rate increases back then that were passed through. But of course, the water rate itself started at a much lower bar. So
Fallbrook did just go down, so it can't happen. We all know it's a different weird story, but I'm just saying
Yes.
it can happen. Water bills can go down. Write it on my gravestone.
And as I mentioned, we look at each year as the year progresses, so we're rolling into the next year. So I'm always going to analyze the most current costs and the most current data and the most current things that are out there. And I'm dealing with actual numbers, not, oh, we're projecting to go up 39 over 3 years. I'm looking at actual data. So if the costs put onto us were to go down, I would absolutely bring to the board lower rates.
Sure.
one thing I want to be clear about, today we're not going to be asking the board to even consider the future rates because we don't know them at this time. This will be something that it will be vetted through a new 218 process, which staff is intending on starting at early 2025. Today, what we're doing is just considering the normal pass-through costs of our existing adopted 218, which happens to be locked at 6.5%. But the discussion is still very valuable because it shows us how we're being set up, which will end up carrying over into 2025 218, which will end up carrying over to the 2026 rates. So.
And then real quick, the one thing I wanted to also emphasize on this slide, that these amounts are yearly amounts, but they add up, they get cumulative. So right now in our budget, the 5-year cumulative operating deficit is about $5.8 million. Then I wanted to show if we didn't pass through the rates for January 1st, 2025, what that same 5-year period would look like. This is assuming we don't pass through rates on January 25, but still pass through the rates that we mentioned for 26, 27, 28, 29. So that $5 million gap, you would think, oh, it would just be 1 year's worth of rates, but no, it's cumulative. That $5.7 million gap comes to $17.3 million. So a difference of $12 million over 5 years.
Yeah. And just one thing clear, this makes the assumption that we don't make up the rate difference from what we would have done. So in other words, if it was 19 in 2025 or 14 or whatever it ends up, that we don't go back, not actually charge people, but make up that rate difference to, try and catch completely back up. So to make it even a bigger rate increase.
In order to catch up, the Water Authority would have to not, we would have to match whatever the Water Authority is charging, and their rates have been historic.
Yes.
And there's no end to that in sight.
Well, so on the Water Authority rate increases, they have 39 to 40% currently, but they're really front-loaded in the first 2 years and a smaller rate increase in year 3. I can't say with great confidence I agree with that's the reality of the situation. So unless there's a different direction from the board, staff is going to recommend a 2-year Prop 218, because we kind of know what 2026 and 2027 might be. But projecting out to 2028 seems a little bit uncertain, because I think they have a small rate increase in year 3.
And if I could add to that real quick, we don't necessarily have to match what the water authority, their rate increases are. We have to match approximately 70% of what their rate increases are.
Okay.
So 73% of our costs are water authority costs. Our internal increases, as Mike mentioned, have been 4%. And we've averaged over the last 10 years only a 4% increase in our internal costs. So if it was just for us today, we'd be bringing you a 4% rate increase and it'd be a lot more palatable. But for the water authority, as I mentioned, 70% of what they are raising our costs by, we actually have to match that to stay.
Thank you for that clarification.
So the next one I wanted to do is show you a rate survey of all the agencies. The one thing I did change this time is I took all the names off of my next slide, and there's a reason why I did that. I've been kind of preaching to you guys, it's harder and harder to do rate studies and compare us to neighboring agencies. A lot of them are vague in their Prop 218. They say, we'll pass through whatever the water authority is, no limits. So we don't know those amounts. Others have now put stuff on the property taxes. Others are just vague in some of their rates. So here is that slide, that famous slide, then showing where we stand. Now, I did put us down in there. We're in the darker blue. So currently, this is, okay, let me kind of back up for a second. These are all known rate increases for 2025. If it was on their website, I put them in here. You'll see on the bottom, the average in San Diego County of these agencies is $129. That number is actually a little bit low because some of these agencies have not put in their 2025 rates, where I have put in our 2025 rates. So when I'm comparing us to neighboring agencies, their numbers might be kind of artificially lower because I have not included their 2025 increases if it wasn't published. So that $129.24 is only going to go up. I did put the bookends in here. The lowest charge is $89.38 a month, and that's because this one agency has a lake by their side that they can draw water from. I won't mention who they are. The other two, the top twos, are ones that have exited the district. So Albrook and Ainbow, I won't mention them either. So it just kind of shows you where we are. The vertical line is where the average is. So it shows that we would be at $111.49, where the overall average is $129. So the next slide actually kind of goes over.
Well, before you go there, one of the things I like about this slide is you can see based on, and this is not even every agency, just the agencies that have published what they're doing for 2025 rates, the increase is 7%, a little bit over 7% averaged out, or about $8.48. Our increase that we're looking at, mainly due to cap from our existing 218, is 6.5% and $6.80. So even with that, we're still have a compelling story. We have probably the most expensive source water in the county, and our rates are still not at the bottom, but almost at the bottom. And being at the bottom, really, since we don't have our own water source, it's really an apples and orange comparison. Because unfortunately, we're not next to a lake and have that free water source that comes out when you have a good wet year. So it's a little bit of a perspective, and it's still a big rate increase that we're looking at, and some challenges in 2025. But at the end of the day, for the board, it's a good, compelling story. We have the most expensive water source, and we're still delivering water at a great value.
Yeah, and if I could add also, what I like about the slide, I think we should be proud that we're 4th lowest on here amongst these 22 agencies. Something that we can take pride in. And also, even with the proposed rate increase tonight, we're still going to be about 13.7% below the average rate of those 22 agencies.
Where would our bar be if we did a full pass-through of the water authority?
I kind of got something like that. I don't have the bar, but it would be still way below the orange line. It'd be somewhere around, got to go here. It'd be somewhere around where this agency is, right between these two.
118?
Yeah, 118. And I'll show that, and Wes stole some of my thunder on the next one, but it's okay. We'll get there. So it's okay. Reiterate. I like that. So as I mentioned, the last time I did this rate study, the previous average was $120.76 of the agencies. The current one that we just saw on that previous slide, it's 129. So their increase, as James mentioned, goes up 7% overall. VWD from 104 to 111, we're going up 6.5%. So what does that mean? What does that look like? We were 13.3% below average in the previous analysis that I did. We're now 13.7% below average in this current one. And those numbers, as I mentioned, are artificially low. The average will probably be closer to 131, but I don't have that information. As I told you, I only deal with information that is valid, that I can get my hands on. I'm not going to predict someone else's rate increases right now.
He says artificially low, I would say conservative.
So what I wanted to show, and kind of going on your question, Director Ellithorpe, where would we be had we been able to pass through this whole amount? So if we were to pass, if we were to pass through the full amount, I mentioned that the rates would be $118. We'd still be below average by about 8.6%, 8.7%. So even if we were to catch up. And the one thing if I kind of can go back, by catching up, that does not in any way, shape, or form mean collecting past monies that we've already lost. So I just kind of wanted to make that clear, that $4.6 million that we're in the hole today, we have no plans to charge customers extra to recoup that. Just wanted to reiterate that. Yeah, it's always forward-looking. The next thing I wanted to do was show something of a personal nature. I wanted to show my own personal water bill, so I have it on the next slide, because it drives home. I'm a customer too. I'm not a customer of Vallecitos. I'm a customer of City of San Diego. I have the pleasure of paying extra to live in the City of San Diego. So I wanted to kind of show my own bill here, just to kind of give perspective to this. So here's my bill from City of San Diego. This is from the period, and they're a bi-monthly, so every 2 months. So keep that to note. This is from August to October. I used 24 units of water. Okay, divide that by 2, that's 12. So I am pretty much our average single-family residence. There's 4 of us in the house. Okay? In the red here, and let me take the next slide because I kind of blew up the image so you can see it a little bit better. My bill for the 2 months was $378. Short story. There's a $378, and I did an Excel spreadsheet in case you can't read my chicken scratch over there. If I was in Vallecitos, my total bill would be $276. Now let me break it down though too, because it's a bit misleading if I just leave it at that. This is water and sewer. If we were to look at just water, that's this top line, the City of San Diego is charging me $250 for those 12 units a month times 2 months. If I was in Vallecitos, I'd be charged $198. So I'm being charged again for the privilege of living in the City of San Diego, an extra $52 on my water bill. The sewer I won't go into too much, but they're charging me $48 more for those 2 months. $100, and I broke it down to divide it into 2 for you, so monthly. So monthly, I'm paying $26 more in water, $23 more in sewer, $50 more overall every month.
Is this at our proposed rates?
This is at current rates, sorry, because I don't know what City of San Diego's proposed rates are for January 1st yet. So I wanted to actually bring in an actual example. Oops, sorry. Keep saying sorry, but this mouse isn't working for me. One more up, one more down. Okay. So the water charges are 13.2% higher that I'm paying than if I were to live in Vallecitos. My sewer charges are over 30% higher, so my overall average bill is 18% more than if I lived in Vallecitos. So your next statement to me should be, move to Vallecitos, Mike. But, yeah. So with that, the conclusion of my presentation is staff recommendations. So staff recommends that the board adopt the proposed water rates with an effective date of January 1st, 2025 for bills mailed out after January 31st, 2025. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions or discussions.
Okay. Questions, comments? Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation, and it's my second time seeing it, so it was even better the second time around. I don't know, obviously very much against rate increases, and I'll rant about it for a minute here, but, we just passed Prop 4 for $10 billion, this water bond that the San Diego County Water Authority will see nothing, almost nothing of, to my knowledge. So that's a nice new burden on ratepayers. And then now they get the pleasure of this too. And it just, at some point, you're going to have people knocking on your door, and don't see it very far off. And it's not that 20% margin businesses are unusual. There's plenty of them out there, and they figure out a way to do more with less. And I think there's still a lot looking that we can do with that 20% to get it down. And it's just, the public is not going to accept these continual rate increases, and rightfully so, in my opinion. And I know that they're because of what is our source of water, but we just need to be creative, and we need to renegotiate every single contract, every single bill that we have, and only then, after all that's done, should we be asking for any extra money. So from my point of view, it's a no for me until we have that answer, but obviously that won't matter for much longer here. So take it for what it's worth. Thank you.
What other comments are there?
I'd just say that the Finance Committee reviewed this at length and had very lively discussion as well. But we didn't put forth a recommendation. Kind of, it is what it is, and we left it for the board to decide. So.
Okay, thank you for that. The public is expecting a 6.5% rate increase. That's what we told them that we were going to do. This is not sustainable. It is not a sustainable way to continue charging the public. And I worry about that because we have a lot of low-income folks in San Marcos. And something that has sort of boggled my mind since I've lived in California is, we have these take-or-pay contracts. We are apparently locked into a contract with San Diego County Water Authority where we have to continue taking water from them. We don't have any groundwater. Recycled water is not up and running yet. But my question is, I agree with Director Grissett, the renegotiation of the contract that we have with San Diego County Water Authority as we continue to use less and less water in the region and also in our area, why aren't we working with other districts, for example, and moving forward together and saying we're not going to continue paying for this. We're not going to continue operating in a way that does not reflect our environment and our water usage. Why are we continuing to have this contract? Why can't we renegotiate it?
Well, just to address a portion of that, because the unpackaged, the bigger picture is something that I don't have all the expertise in.
Oh, sure, it's a big question, but it's germane, because we do this every year, and this isn't the first time I've raised it, but yes.
So for the district, as far as from a commodity standpoint, for the normal aqueduct water that we get, we could take zero, or we could take as much as we can based on our capacity of our meter sizes. So there's no take or pay, but the water authority has a take or pay with several entities, and the cities and agencies who build treatment plants have an obligation to maximize their basically efficiencies by trying to maximize the water. From Vallecitos' standpoint, the only real take or pay we have is the desal water.
desal, okay.
And even though it's still our most expensive water, in this one case, it actually moved our percentage down compared to the average. That being said, I have talked with the general manager about opportunities on desal to provide savings and cost sharing, and he has been open to that, although since nothing has come to fruition, there's nothing to report. In other words, if the water authority finds a way to offload or save desal, Vallecitos is going to be at the table to hopefully share in those opportunities. None of them have come to fruition yet, so there's nothing to report. As far as the bigger picture of water law and the Colorado River and the challenges that
You're not going to solve that tonight for us?
I'm definitely not an expert. I
General
won't even
Manager?
pretend. I won't even pretend. So
Yeah, just to add, the Water Authority is looking at they've got several take-or-pay contracts or situations. Their usage is getting down to the point where it's coming almost below that take-or-pay quantity. They're looking at marketing some of that water to other entities, Orange County, LA County, City of LA, other states, Arizona and Nevada. So they're not sitting on their hands. They're actively trying to market that water. So that's one thing that they can do.
Other comments? Yes.
Yeah, I apologize. Director Eltharp just reminded me. So there is a savings. Unfortunately, it still doesn't offset the existing rate increases, but without the savings, the increases could be higher. That Dan Denham, the general manager, did mention, which is going to save the Water Authority upwards of $20 million. Unfortunately, it's a different scale. $20 million for them is not as much, and $20 million for us is significant. So they are marking the water, working with the U.S. Bureau and Arizona and basically Imperial Irrigation District. And there's going to be some savings that are going to be realized for 2025, but that's already been factored into the rates that we've seen. And there's no guarantee that that will continue into 2026 and beyond, but we'll take that a year at a time.
Other comments or
I have
questions?
one comment. I like this discussion. I mean, it's tough because we don't want to raise rates, but you've brought the word sustainability. And my concern with, we're undercharging $3.25, $3.30. Say the same thing happens next year. Now we're at $6.60. That's not sustainable.
Right.
I mean, so is there any provisions in place? I mean, what happens there?
Yeah, so I've put in a few update emails, and obviously it's all based on board authorization and board approval, but we have a several-step process, which includes looking at sewer rate charges, fixed rate charges, getting them off the water bill, which will reduce the water bill by about 35%. We're looking into that now, and Wes and his team have started that process. We're also looking into a new 218 process to basically get us whole with the Water Authority pass-throughs. The Water Authority costs roughly 74% of our total costs for water authorities. When we look at SDG&E, chemical costs, and other like legislative or regulatory costs, about 80%, a little bit over 80% of our costs are basically out of our control. So we're looking at all the reductions we can in the 20%, but our pool is our piece of the pie is 20%.
Because we're locked into that 6.5% rate increase.
No, just in general,
Oh.
in general. So right now, we're under collecting. So when we do the new 218 next year, staff will bring forth a recommendation to catch up. Because the longer we let that go, the bigger the
So
gap
that's a
is.
concern, not to charge back, like you mentioned.
Yeah, no
But
back
going
charge.
forward for this provision, like if it just, I
And
mean,
we
this is concerning.
Yeah,
And
one
then
of
that's
the,
where we end up with the 19%, if
Yep.
that's.
one of the concerns that we have and staff will bring forward through committees is kind of a generational equity concern. Because the longer we push this down, the more increase it is for the future
It seems like we've done that in
customers.
the past, because I know 3-4 years ago, no rate increases or.
True, but that was pretty much an industry-wide thing during COVID, and at the time, that's what almost everybody in the industry did, because we really didn't know what the future looked like, so.
Well,
Sounds good. Second question, why don't you move, Mike?
I used to live in San Marcos.
I was just gonna say, we keep talking about this 20%, and it's good and all, and as I mentioned, there's plenty of businesses that make 20% or less and have to work with the same circumstances that we do, but there's just no cutting that I'm seeing. There's no public awareness of all of the things that you are doing, that the public needs to know that you're doing your part if you're asking for more, and that is the gap that's being missed here. And especially when they see headlines like 96% of all new jobs in the past 2 years were government, and seeing continual raises in the government sphere. This is not building the trust that we need to be established here. And I'm proud of our district in that we are one of the most efficient ones, and we can always do better, to our points that have been made, but it certainly needs to be made
more obvious, and I think we certainly need to do more of it, and we have plenty of stuff that gets talked about at the board that is, you know, in my opinion, things that could fall in that bucket. And we need to be taking, it sounds like, drastic action to correct that, because for every 200 grand that you can add into this bucket, it results in, 50 cents off of everyone's bill every month, or offsetting that raise of $6.50 to $6 a month. So that's my point.
Yes.
So real quick, so we will, James will probably touch on this, but we will be doing a public outreach on this. But I mentioned, I think in the first presentation, something that Wes did on the CalPERS, pre-funding the CalPERS, that saved us money. If you remember, I said the rates would be 118. Had we not done OPEB, had we not done CalPERS, had we not done solar, had we not done some of these other things, that number, and I'll just guesstimate, would be $125 per month. So that's why we're kind of one of the fourth lowest, is because some of the things that we've already done. So maybe we haven't done a good enough job in getting the word out there, but there are those things that we've done, and we all take our job seriously and want to keep, we're fiduciaries of the district's assets, and we take that very seriously. So sometimes patting ourselves on the back isn't the first thing we want to do, but maybe getting that word out there is probably a better thing to do.
Good.
And Mike, that's well said. Well, do you mind going to the table where we show all the costs?
Yeah.
Because I think Director Gross said is 100% correct on several things here. And one of the things I want to give you kudos for is we don't do a good job coming to the board and saying, hey, this is how much we're losing and this is how we're going to make up for that. So one of the things, and when I say this, it's really Wes's burden, because I said, Wes, we need to come back to the board. And Wes has had his good point. There's quarterly updates on financials of the board that laid this out. Those aren't good enough. So we need to come back to the board for a mid-year review. And so in January, we're coming back to the board. If you look at that number, negative $4.6 million, before we get into any type of areas where we have more funds, we have to turn that number into a positive. So right now, this year, the budget process that was in the district achievements is all about making that number into a smaller loss, to cut hopefully over $1 million out. That's $1 million of cut when we're really looking at a $2.5 million operational budget. So that's 35%. That is significant and beyond like a 20% number. I don't know where we are, so I don't want to shoot myself or Wes in the foot. But in January, we're going to be coming back to the board and doing a mid-year update of how are we doing budget to actual, where do we find those savings, and give the board a summary of everything that the staff has been doing to try and make up the gap where we can. Once those numbers are positive, then you're absolutely right. What else can we do? Can we look at offsetting rate increases? Can we look at rates actually going down, assuming that the water authority being 70-something% doesn't trump anything we can save? Unfortunately, it's a David and Goliath syndrome here. We will save $1 million, and they're going to increase $4 million at this point. But at the end of the day, Director Gross says, right, we need to do a better job of making it not only aware to the board, but also to the public. So.
Well, and I would say, I'm sorry if I can. We're very proud of what we do on a daily basis, and on a daily basis we find cuts, and on a daily basis we find savings. There's a presentation in the budget that we bring to the board that shows that we've cut PERS and saved millions of dollars per year. OPEB, millions of dollars. Those two are major incentives we've taken. The solar that we've implemented, not to mention our staffing levels. They've gone down from 115 people down to 107. We've maintained it at 107, which has also saved us. We present this every year to show you those savings, and we're always taking initiatives on a daily basis. Maybe we don't present those so they're obvious enough for the board to see, but that's what we live and breathe and are proud of doing. Our costs over the last 10 years, as we mentioned, have averaged 3.8% increases internally. Inflation is higher than that. We've kept everything low, we've cut everything, and we're always doing it, and we're very proud of that.
I think that you have done a great job, and I think that the where the public's lack of understanding is everything that goes into creating and setting these rates. And what I would like to see is something very elementary. I would like to see a video. here's how you read your water bill, here's what all of these things mean, here's where that here's where that money is comes from, here's the percentage that's passed through that has to go to the San Diego County Water Authority, because the public they just don't know. And I think it's a great educational opportunity. And in doing that, you can talk about all these things that we're doing to try to reduce costs and punch that number, 4%. This is our Vallecitos' part of that budget that is increased. It's mostly the county water. And I just think that there's a great educational opportunity for that.
And Mike, you may want to touch on this because both Mike and Chris are actually working on a fact sheet, a very simple fact sheet, taking the lessons we learned from the pump zone rates, mainly successes and some of the lessons that we learned based on the board's action, making a fact sheet to go out to all of our customers, providing information, explanation, making it very simple to read, having a pie chart so they understand where the costs are allocated and how they're distributed. Our plan is to actually share that with the board, get comments back from the board, and finalize the fact sheet before we ever send it out.
Okay. Any other comments or questions before we vote? Okay. May I have a motion to move staff's recommendation?
So moved.
Okay, and I will second. Any further discussion? Okay, please vote. Okay, thank you. 4 yeses and 1 no. Thank you for the presentation and the discussion and for being a steward of public funds. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Okay, item number 2.5, fluoride in drinking water. Do we have any public speakers for this item?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
So this item was requested by Director Grosset and seconded to bring it forth to a board meeting to discuss the direction or recommendation from the board to the Water Authority on fluoridation of drinking water. With that, I'll hand it over to the President and also Director Grosset.
Okay, I don't have anything planned. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Yes.
I believe this was just moved to an action item, so I'll say what I would like to happen. And I understand it's just a recommendation, so there's nothing, it's up to the representative, in this case Director Elletharp, to carry this. But I would formally motion that we as the Vallecitos Water Board request that Director Elletharp advocate on our behalf to the San Diego County Water Authority to consider discontinuing the addition of fluoride to our water system for cost reasons, as well as the unnecessary additive of administering health without people's permission.
So just to be clear, you're motioning that we put forward a directive to the San Diego County Water Authority.
To advocate on our behalf to discontinue the addition of fluoride to our water system.
Okay, is it appropriate that we have a motion, like, I'm not sure what we can do and what we can't do. This is not.
Well, you used the word directive. I didn't hear that. I guess if the board were to adopt its position relative to that for consideration by the member who serves on the Water Authority, that member has the authority to exercise their discretion in terms of what they provide to the Water Authority. So,
So, Jim, so is the motion appropriate if the language says just provide guidance or provide a recommendation?
well, I think it's to provide a recommendation for
right.
consideration by the member, right?
Correct.
Do we do that? do we provide guidance to our representatives, or is that something that we do?
It can be done, and it's been done in the past, but it's up to the representative whether they take that guidance or not. But there has been in the past where the board has provided guidance from the representative, and the representative obviously has the freedom to take that guidance and basically vote or bring up the things, bring up the item based on what they feel is appropriate.
And this is a state law that we're talking about, is mandated by the state.
Yes, fluoridation is currently a law.
We're asking the San Diego County Water Authority to circumvent the law.
I guess that's the problem I have with it.
Well, it's most likely a moot point anyways. It seems that there will be a federal recommendation soon, so I yield.
Okay. Okay, any other comments?
Just a question, what's the federal recommendation going forward? I'm not aware of it.
There was an intention by a potential incoming administrator to issue notice that fluoride should be removed from the water source.
From the federal level?
That is their recommendation, intended recommendation, rather.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's a local jurisdiction. The federal government doesn't have a say really in whether to fluoridate or not, unless the EPA were to revise an MCL. So, you know, the federal government could advise local water districts to cease it, but they can't require it, at least at this point in time.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Okay, any other comments?
I would just say that if, you know, if this board wants to cease fluoridation, to go after the regulatory agency that has jurisdiction, that would be the State Water Board Division of Drinking Water. I think that would be the most effective path. The Water Authority is going to continue to comply with the regulation until the regulation is changed.
Yep, that's fair. I guess my original intention was to provide a recommendation to reevaluate it from their perspective.
Yeah, I would just say that Metropolitan Water District has an item on their upcoming board agenda for a fluoridation update, and I would say the Water Authority is going to follow suit within the next couple months, given the publicity at the federal level at this point in time. I'd be happy to take any input under advisement and relay that to the Water Authority at such time as they take it up, so.
Okay, thank you.
That's my promise, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, if that's the case, then I would like to see us direct our member to take our position about, or if we vote on it, take our position to eliminate the fluoride. I agree, there's going to be a federal change with.
Well, we don't, first of all, we don't know that.
We don't know at this point, yeah.
Secondly, you know, I don't know that that is our board position. None of us are pharmacologists, although I was in another lifetime. I am not now. I don't believe that any of us are qualified to make that decision. And I'm certainly not comfortable putting forward a board recommendation about something that we've not had a legitimate presentation from a professional medical provider. And I'm not comfortable moving forward that we have a board position about fluoride in the water.
I would just say I support any science-based decision, whatever it may be, whether to continue or to cease fluoridation, but base it on the science. And we just don't have the science at this point, credible science at these recommended dosage levels.
All right, so I don't believe there's an action to be taken for this item. Okay, moving on to reports. General Manager.
Yeah, just a couple items tonight. So coming forward, we'll be having the audit and investment policy in December. There was a main break on Coronado Hills. This is an area of very high pressure. Staff is actually going to be budgeting to maybe put a new facility in there to help reduce the pressure, but of course we'll go through the budget process and do a cost-benefit analysis because this area has seen some significant damage due to the high pressure in the area. And besides that, I will be on vacation out of the country starting on Friday and returning on Thanksgiving. So I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays. and I'll be hitting the ground running when I get back. So, of course, I'll be here for a couple days and then at Aqua, and I'll see a few of you guys at Aqua. So, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. District Legal Counsel.
I don't have anything formal, just an informal comment to Director Grosset. I tell you, in 35 years of working in this industry, you are a unicorn, and I have appreciated your perspective, your integrity, character, and your civility, and also your passion in pursuing issues. And it has been interesting and rewarding working with you. So, best of luck.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. San Diego County Water Authority.
Yeah, their regular November board meeting is tomorrow. I'll be attending, and otherwise, no report.
Okay, thank you. Encino Wastewater Authority.
Yes, we had our board meeting this morning, and the items that were discussed were the key performance indicators, the maintenance annex building demolition project award. We need that done so that we can get our application for a $900,000 grant for our,
9 million.
9 million, excuse me, thank you, $9 million grant for our clear water, clear project, which has to do with our energy resilience. Let's see, we went into executive session to talk about our general manager's evaluation. That'll be coming up in the future. And let's see, I think that was it. Next meeting is December 11th.
Okay, great. Thank you. Standing committees. No standing committees. All right. Director's reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars. Yes.
Attended the One Water Council meeting, which is a virtual meeting, and it primarily revolved around becoming an effective One Water messenger. A lot to do with their own agency and spreading the good word and goodwill of what they're doing. And there was not a whole lot more than that other than a breakout session. So.
Okay, thank you. Any others?
Just my apologies. I wrote it down, but just a reminder, the December 4th meeting will be canceled due to lack of quorum. And then we'll be we'll be adjourning that meeting, not canceling, and reconvening it on December 11th. So we'll have a meeting on December 11th and on December 18th.
And just for the record, we're adjourning the regular meeting to the 11th, as the general manager said, so we can handle certain items. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification and the correct verbiage. Okay, any director's comments, future agenda items?
Just one comment. Our legal counsel took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
In regards to Director Grosset, thank you very much. Truly, it's been enjoyable, so thank you.
Thank you again.
And happy Thanksgiving all.
Yes. Ditto.
Yep. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And if there's no further business, we're adjourned.
All right.